Hey everybody, it's Kristen, and I wanted to get back to continuing with my 64 hexagrams challenge, which I started a couple of years ago. And we really did the class. We had a class and then kind of like a separate class challenge. And all of that has been over, but I was doing these videos, and I think I'm on part 6 now. So I just wanted to finish these videos. These videos are a study of just the hexagrams. And I say just the hexagrams because um, I spent a number of years just studying the trigrams, and I am really kind of getting to my not end of study of the hexagrams, but I've been studying the hexagrams, just the hexagrams, kind of focused on the hexagrams, and then I'll probably get into studying the line text a little bit more. But I will say that in the year that I took this little break, I have still been focusing on the I Ching and doing a lot more study, reading more books. I have also started a blog on the Medium platform that is just the I Ching, where I write about like my own conclusions or thoughts about, what the I Ching is as a divination tool. And I do see it as a divination tool and not a philosophy tool. I've also been writing or compiling, I guess I should say, because I have been using Microsoft Copilot um, to break down like etymology and meanings and get a sense of like what moment is each hexagram really, giving us. So I call this moments of change. This is an ebook. It should be available soon. I'll just say soon. I'm not sure when, but this is just something I've been working on for me that's helping me kind of pull everything together about the hexagrams, understanding the etymology, and if we were to kind of reduce this into a moment of time, that to me is what each hexagram is. It's showing you a moment of change. And I've also made 3 decks at this point. The one I was showing in the previous videos was made with Microsoft Designer, and then this is like a remake of that one. I'm using Canva Dreamlab, and then I have another one that's like nature based that is with Canva Dreamlab. So every time I create something, and this is what I believe with Oracle decks, it is a form of study. Making the deck helps me study things because depending on the images that I've chosen or am using, um, that helps me figure out what the card meaning is or trying to depict it in a specific way. There's a learning process in there. So what I want to do is continue with part 6, where we're going to be looking at hexagrams 41 through 48. And I have been looking at these as pairs, the odd, even pairs, and I do think that there's a lot of information that can be gained by looking at them through the odd, even kind of pair lens. So I'm going to kind of continue with that. I probably won't be breaking things down quite as much. Um, I feel like there's so many. This is one thing I've learned. There's so many layers to hexagrams. There's so many different ways to read them, whether you're reading them just for the trigrams, whether you're reading them and looking at the nuclear, which are the internal trigrams, or you're looking at them in terms of the line relationships, or there's just so many different possibilities. So we're just focusing on the ideograms and the etymology. So I'm going to try to synthesize in these last 3 parts. I think I have part 6, part 7, and part 8 to go. Just kind of synthesize and also explain the images that I've chosen. And I say chosen, but with AI, you're creating the images. You have to have an image, and then you're telling it's a text to image generator. So you have to tell the system what image you want to create. So 41 and 42, we have decrease and increase. As an odd even pair, I think this is pretty easy one to figure out like what these are about. Is decrease and increase. when we think about decrease and increase, these two hexagrams are really showing us that they are integral, that there's no decrease without increase, there's no increase without decrease. And this is one of the hexagrams, both of these are inverse, which means if you take this hexagram, you turn it, flip it upside down, you're going to get this hexagram. And so I find with these inverse patterns that we're often seeing like a kind of like look at it from a different perspective. It's kind of like showing you this is the same thing, but from two different perspectives. And so the for hexagram 41, decrease. I still really like using this book, The Elements of the I Ching by Stephen Karcher, because he provides idioms for each one. And sorry, not idioms, ideograms. So what the picture essentially is telling you. The ideogram portrays a hand holding a ceremonial vessel, making an offering to the spirit. So that is 41 decrease. And so what I've depicted here is a woman tithing at a church. And so the hexagram 41, the decrease could be a penalty, like you have to pay a fine. It could be something like you're paying a toll at a toll booth. I think that's the image I used in the previous deck. But that's the thought in terms of decrease. It could also show up, say, in a predictive reading as a loss, like you've lost something. But I would say it's probably more that there is a fine or a penalty. You had to pay something. But even when we pay like our fines, we are tithing, it's going into something else, right? It's going into like society, it's going into the government. And so there is a personal decrease, but an increase to the general welfare. At least that's the thought of it. And so even though there is decrease, it's not necessarily that you've completely lost something. There is a sense of just you're putting something into something greater. So this hexagram shows up during times of simplification where you've got to reduce excess. It's also symbolizing restraint and a need to conserve your energy and resources. So now we want to look at hexagram 42, which is increase, kind of think of that as the opposite. In this case, I'm thinking like she's paid her tithes and then the church has given money back to like the poor, to people in need. So increase, look up the ideogram. The ideogram for hexagram 42 portrays a vessel overflowing with material and spiritual benefits. And so I think the etymology really shows like water or liquid in a shallow container. So you think about something that's easily full. So when we have increase, it represents profit or gain. It can also just be like blessings or some sort of enrichment to your life. So this is a time of abundance. It's going to be a time of advantage where opportunities and growth are plentiful. But just remember that you're going to come back around to this. So it's not about hoarding. It's still about like giving back. So if you have a lot, you still want to give back and share what you have. So that is hexagrams 41 and 42. The next two we're going to look at are hexagrams 43 and 44. And I will just tell you this, these two I've had a lot of trouble understanding. So there's quite a few of them that I'm still like, I'm not really sure about that. Although I will say just through studies and looking at reading different books and using, doing readings, I've gotten a lot of clarity on a lot of these hexagrams. So when we look at 43 and 44, We have decisive action, 43, and then chance encounter, 44. And for me, I'm always trying to figure out what is the pair? What is the pairing really showing us? And that's what I mean when I say I'm not really sure. I have a sense of what these mean, but I'm not sure exactly as a pair what they suggest. Although I believe this is just an intuitive, symbolic kind of thing, that this is a pair that's kind of showing us like male masculinity, female femininity, and a sexually speaking, like kind of phallic energy and vessel kind of energy. That's just what I pick up personally. But when we have hexagram 43, we have decisive action. So this one represents, the ideogram shows a hand shooting an arrow. So like think about, I think even today that is a strong symbol, at least in the West, of like hitting the mark or hitting a goal, a very strong sense of decisiveness, goal setting. And so this one can be related to just making some sort of decisive action, using determination and using your clarity. So I used a picture of somebody using like really sharp shears to trim a bush. Okay, so the the hexagram, if we just look at the lines and we compare the two lines, we have in both of them one yin line. In 43, it's at the top. In 44, it's at the bottom. And so, in some of what I've read, it's like the yang, all these are yang, the yang is overthrowing the yin. It's getting it out of there. Whereas in this one, it's like a strong yin. It's in the first position, which is typically a yang position. So we have a strong yin that is essentially taking over the yang. So, because remember, everything starts at the bottom and goes upward. And so we get this, again, very, very strong yin versus kind of like strong yang energy. So this one I find shows up for like literally making decisive actions, making a decision. I think I've seen it one time when somebody was sick for a long time. They're trying to figure out what medicines, what supplements, what they needed. And when they finally got some clarity on that, this hexagram showed up. Hexagram 44, chance encounter. You'll find it with lots of different kinds of words or naming. And I'm just going to say, usually I think this one is really about like a sexual encounter. The etymology literally means a woman, female. Typically, this one will come up in a situation where there might be what they would usually say is strangers in the night, two ships passing, kind of like a chance encounter with somebody that is temporary. This is not going to come up for like a committed relationship in a predictive reading. It's like a chance meeting too. And it could be some situation, not necessarily a person, but a situation that's serendipitous, like a serendipitous kind of encounter. And it could be positive. There's not a lot of, from what I've read, like positive stuff around this, especially if you start reading the lines. But it's, think about this as a kind of temporary or chance encounter that could lead to some fleeting opportunity. So that is 43 and 44. The next two are 45 and 46. And let's see. So we have 45 assembly and 46 ascending. And the ideogram for 45 portrays a bunch of grass and a servant. So it's really about gathering the capacity to do things. And so Let me see, where are my notes on that one? Yeah, it says the etymology is dense, thick, close, set, to gather or collect together. Also, the essence or the best part of something. And so, what I found just from doing readings is, first of all, assembly is a what I call a union hexagram. There's a couple of hexagrams that relate to unions, like people coming together. From what I'm seeing right now, when hexagram 45 shows up, it is talking about the society as a whole, as opposed to just you and your friends or some other group of people. It generally seems to literally be everybody. So that's something I've noticed, and it's a time of unity and gathering and using collective strength and shared intentions. So it's people that are coming together that represent probably a larger collective rather than just a small group. This one can also mean something is crowded, like there's just too many people or people being really packed closely together. And then again, if you turn this one upside down, you're going to get hexagram 46, ascending. This one is really about, I think of this one in terms of this pairing as this is the people coming together. And then they join hands and they hoist one person up. And that's what you see with ascending. That is the etymology is it's showing the act of using both hands together to hold or carry something or lift something up. And so ascending literally means to rise. This hexagram might show up predictively if you were, let's say, getting a promotion or something like that. It can mean an increase or gain. I would typically see the increase hexagram that we just showed as showing up for money, like an increase in money. This one I typically see as like growth or evolution, like an increase in, like ascending in a role or responsibility. So it does suggest upward movement that does require self discipline and determination. But this one also suggests other people can help you too. Okay, and let's look at the last two. We have 47 and 48. I use for 47 exhaustion. It's also called oppression. So you might see it with that as well. And then 48 is the well. So 47, the ideogram is actually a tree that is growing within a very small enclosure. So it really can't grow too much. It's impeding its growth. It's impeding its ability to stretch outward. What we also see here when we look at the trigrams, we have lake over water. What this suggests is like a marsh where all the water is underneath or it's going down instead of coming out. And so the marsh just dries up. And so I really like to use more exhaustion, stagnation. This can mean distress, difficulty, fatigue. But I like to look at it in terms of this kind of barrenness, because what we have on the other side when we flip everything is the well, having access to water. So hexagram 47 is really a time of, it could be showing up for confinement, a sense of imprisonment. It could also show up for just exhaustion, like you're just feeling really depleted. It can show up where you may be in a situation where there's potential for growth, like you want to grow, but your external circumstances are impeding you or making you feel trapped. Hexagram 48 is the well. And what I like about this, even when you think about it being turned upside down, it's kind of like, well, now you have access to the resources, to the inner nourishment. And I look at this hexagram more as saying that you have tapped in to an inner wellspring of your wisdom, your resources, all of these things that can refresh you and sustain you. And so I like to use it. Kind of looks like the same woman. It's actually very similar to this one too. I realized this later. I didn't plan on these. These two, I wanted the woman to look similar. But it's almost like she gave away too much money and she was broke and she was destitute in the middle of the desert. And then she found a well and she is now, getting her life back together. So think about the well as stability and community, because the well is, from an ancient Chinese standpoint, there would be a well at the center of every community. So it's not just about you, it's also about the sustenance of the whole community. So I hope that gives you a nice overview of these 8, and I hope to not take too much longer to finish the rest of this series. Thank you.